Another week has gone by, and in that span, a lot has happened in the NBA world. 2 more teams have been eliminated from the playoffs, we witnessed a historic collapse, and we're now left with only 2 teams from each conference battling for a chance to go to the NBA Finals. You, the viewers, obviously have a lot of thoughts on these topics, so for this video, we're back with episode 2 of Your Take Not Mine, the series we started here on this channel where you tell me your hottest takes of the week, and I react to them and give you my thoughts. I sent out a tweet asking for your submissions, so if you don't already, go follow me on Twitter at hoopsreference, and make sure to do that now for a chance to be included in a future episode. Before we start though, I wanted to thank the sponsor of today's video, Stadium Live. Stadium Live is an awesome new app for sports fans, and it has so much especially for NBA fans. It has mini-games, voting polls, trivia, NBA 2K live streams, and chat rooms where you can hang out with other fans of the game and interact with them. Plus, you're able to customize your own personal avatar and dress it up to match your own personal style. Their best feature, in my opinion, is the live team game, which is just like daily fantasy where you pick your team to win points and earn coins that can be spent throughout the app. The app is free, so go check out the link in my description of this video and check it out for yourself. The first take we'll be discussing comes to us from Dominic, and he says that Paul George is not even a top 50 player in the NBA right now, and I had a feeling Paul George's name would come up in this episode because of how bad the Clippers collapsed, combined with how big of a punching bag George has become. I'm not saying he hasn't brought most of it on himself, but I do think he's gotten a little too much and people have been taking it too far, and he's now just getting piled on as an easy target. Paul George has been a very, very good player in the NBA for many years now, and at best, he was firmly in the top 15 of the league when you rank players. Just last year, he was in the running for the MVP award, and although he didn't really have a realistic chance at winning it, he was still in the running, which is an accomplishment in and of itself. This year, however, he's been a bit more down across the board, scoring 6 fewer points per game, but he was still a terrific shooter. He's solid on both offense and defense still, and he played a big role in the Clippers getting the 2 seed. Yes, along the way he's said some things that have annoyed the fans, and as a result, made it easier to root against him. So when he did struggle in the playoffs this year, it was celebrated by many. Scoring 10 points in a Game 7 is unacceptable, missing every shot you take in the 4th quarter on the brink of elimination is unacceptable, and the amount of terrible games he had throughout the postseason was also unacceptable. But even with all of that being said, he's still safely a top 50 player in any ranking. In fact, I would probably still have him in my top 25 if I were to throw a list together. He's obviously set to drop down several spots, and for good reason, but this take just seems like something as being a prisoner of the moment. The next take we'll be reviewing comes to us from Young King, and he says that Kyrie Irving peaked as a player when he was in Cleveland. He believes that Kyrie's best days as an NBA player came when he was a member of the Cleveland Cavaliers, where he won a ring, contributed to 3 straight finals appearances, and had some pretty historic performances along the way. The best moments of his career came in the 2016 NBA Finals when he put up 41 points in Game 5, and then in Game 7, as we all know, he hit the game-winning step-back three-pointer that ultimately led to Cleveland's first ever ring. The next season was the first year of the Kevin Durant-era Warriors, which many believe to be the greatest team ever assembled, so the Cavs weren't able to repeat as champions, but overall still had a very strong season. That marked the end of Kyrie's tenure in Cleveland though, as he requested a trade, hoping to become a leader of a team himself, and in hindsight, that was probably the start of his career heading downward a bit. He's still been brilliant individually, but controversy has followed him in each of the last 3 years, and he learned the hard way that leading a team is a lot tougher than it looks. He was injured for the entire playoff run his first season in Boston. Last year in Boston, they got eliminated in the 2nd round in a season filled with turmoil and bad chemistry, much of which was attributed to Irving, and this year in Brooklyn, he's been plagued with injuries again. So back to the take at hand, yes, I do agree Kyrie's career peaked in Cleveland, because that was when he was hungriest for success on the court, and that's when he himself was most bought into playing his hardest in the role that he had. The next take up for discussion comes to us from Daryl Morey's intern, and he says that James Harden is better than Kawhi Leonard and that it's not even close. Now, obviously, in order to be featured in this segment, it needs to be a hot take, so he added the "it's not even close" part just to make it extra spicy, even though it's just not true. However, the Kawhi vs. Harden discussion, just in general, did pique my interest, which is why I chose this one. The reason why this take has even come about, most likely, is because of the Clippers' historic collapse that we discussed earlier, and while Paul George is getting a lot of the blame, Kawhi also underperformed in Game 7 and deserves a fair share of the blame. He scored a measly 14 points in Game 7, and the fourth quarter of that game was one of the most embarrassing things I've ever seen from a team on the brink of elimination. James Harden is always criticized for being a choker based purely off of narrative and people's general dislike of the way he plays, and when the Lakers beat the Rockets this year, those narratives once again returned. However, when we take a closer look, we see that Harden actually outperformed Kawhi in this year's playoffs in many ways, and losing to the 1 seed led by LeBron James is a lot more reasonable than choking a 3-1 lead to a lower seeded team like the Clippers did. Harden scored more points, dished out more assists, and was immensely more efficient. However, as I said earlier, I don't think one subpar run from an otherwise great player changes things drastically, and coming into the year, Kawhi was definitively better after winning a ring and Finals MVP in Toronto, two things that Harden does not have. I would still rank Kawhi over Harden as a player, but I also believe it's a lot closer than people think it is, and Harden does deserve more credit than he currently gets for the playoff runs that he puts together despite never being able to take home the ultimate prize of a ring. And now, the final take of the day we'll be reviewing comes to us from Shake, and he says that Markelle Fultz has already had a better NBA career than Lonzo Ball to this point. Both of these young point guards have had very interesting NBA paths thus far, so of course this one stuck out to me and I wanted to discuss it. Markelle's first 2 seasons in the NBA went about as poorly as it possibly could for a player that was selected first overall. Injuries held him back in a huge way, and the worst part was that for the longest time, nobody could even accurately diagnose what was wrong with him. The injury to his shoulder completely ruined his shooting ability, and now over 3 years later today, that shoulder is still hampering his ability to shoot the ball. In Orlando this year, however, he did see a bit of a rejuvenation as a player, and he did a pretty solid job contributing to a playoff team. He averaged 12 points, 5 assists, and 3 rebounds per game while shooting 46% from the field, but the 27% shooting from 3 is what still sticks out, and watching him shoot threes is still a bit cringe-inducing because his form is still so wonky with that shoulder. Over to Lonzo now. He came into the NBA with massive expectations and hype, and it's safe to say he hasn't lived up to them to this point. With that being said though, I still believe he's become incredibly underrated because of all the negativity that tends to surround his name, and overall, he's a highly impactful player. This season he averaged 12 points, 7 assists, and 6 rebounds per game. He plays very strong perimeter defense, and most importantly, his perimeter shot finally showed some progress this season as he shot 38% from 3 on high volume. Both of these players have obvious limitations, neither of them are justifying being picked first and second in a strong draft class, but solely because of the fact that Markelle has really only had one decent season so far, and he didn't even really outperform Lonzo in it. I disagree with the original take and stand on the side of Lonzo Ball as having the better career to this point. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think of these takes we discussed today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.